Welcome to the Captain's Run. It is here. We are getting to the business end. The business end of the season. It is elimination finals. Now it is you either win or you go on holiday. I cannot wait. And I tell you what, talk about. Listen, the final series was mostly pretty good last weekend. Mostly pretty good. And then it got to Sunday and it just ratcheted up all to one of the greatest finals games I've personally ever seen. Welcome to listeners in listening live on SEN 1170, 1620 on the Gold Coast, SENQ 693, or the SEN app. You can download the SEN app on the Google Play Store, also obviously the Apple Store as well. Subscribe to podcasts at Apple and Spotify so you can listen to the podcast. If you miss a little bit, you can listen to it anytime you want, or you can watch us on the Bloke YouTube channel. Give us a follow on Instagram as well, at SEN League or at Bloke in a Bar. Now on the show today, Roosters and Warriors knocked out. We've got the Captain's Run report cards on your team season. Crazy finish in Canberra between the Raiders and the Broncos. Should Walsh have been sent off? Were the Raiders robbed? Holbrook named Newcastle Knights head coach. Radley and Brandon, Rookie of the Year selections. And Justin Horo will join us for our final hour of the preview of Week 2. But the great Maestro, how you going, mate?
Very well, Kempy. What a weekend it was, mate. I know you talked about it a lot on Monday, but just the feelings after that game, did you think you'd lost it twice and then the roller coaster of rugby league, baby?
Oh, man. Like, seriously, the most bizarre ending I've ever seen. And I've never been at a game, especially like a game as important as that, where I felt twice that we'd lost it.
Yeah.
I never felt like, okay, yep, we lost it. Listen, we'll go and play the Sharkies next week. I'm confident we've got a really good chance there. We go across to the other side as well. I'm looking at Melbourne Storm, and I'm going, okay, Melbourne Storm, we've beaten them. You know, and so you're starting to plan your way, you fight back to the grand final, and before you know it, boom, we win the game. But, mate, this week has been incredible for me. Not only, so my wife and that was away down in Canberra.
Oh.
So I was just gaming. I was playing video games all weekend and also had finals footy. It doesn't get much better than that. And I had Terence Crawford versus Canelo. So my internet with Lontel is like flying at the moment. To make it even better, to make the week even better, tomorrow I get the craziest internet installed by Lontel at my studio. And I'll let you know, once it's installed, I'll let you know the details of this because you will not believe what it is. So, yeah, listen, if you want, they've just released their new multi-gig, basically a multi-gig, so it's 2,000 megabytes, whereas the average Australian, it's about 100 megabit speed. So go to lontel.net.au, go to residential, use code BLOKE, you get the 7 days free, guys, and then you also get $25 credit. There's no credit cards, no contracts, nothing. Give it a try. I can't wait to announce what we're getting installed at the studio. You will not believe it. In regards to the game, I mean, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the controversy. Maestro, thoughts on the Walsh-Young situation?
I don't think Hudson Young should have been sent to the sin bin. That's about the only change I'd make to anything that's happened since. I think Carrigan getting a week off probably warranted, given I know you probably have a disagreement in opinion with that, but I'm happy with the 1 week.
Honestly, I've tried to build a career on not being biased. People just assume that I am for, like, I will make excuses for Broncos.
Defend yourself then.
Well, I actually think Carrigan's lucky to be even eligible for the grand final.
Okay,
it was,
the other way.
He shot out of the line, and it was direct force with the head.
Yeah.
If that was in season, that's 2-3 weeks easy. So I think he's lucky. I think he's super, super lucky. Why do you think they took their 1 week charge? They know they're lucky.
I agree with that completely.
And so, I think that we're lucky. Don't get me wrong. I want Paddy Carrigan playing.
Yes.
But, like, if they were to say he got 2 weeks, although I would be devastated, like, I wouldn't be that shocked at it. Like, I think that was my big concern rather than the other stuff. Because the other stuff, I agree with the sentiment that, you know, Hudson Young, like, getting sent. The issue, I don't have an issue with him getting sent for 10 per se. The biggest issue I have is, why did the Raiders get penalised more than the Broncos? That's my issue. Now, if we had a 5-minute bin, I can understand. Because basically, the thing that people are either choosing to forget or they just don't watch as much footy as me. I watch every game. And I promise you, this is how they've been reffing all year long. If you run up, get in someone's face, chest bump them and start yelling in their face, and then something kicks off, you will get the penalty against you, and also you could get sent for 10. A great example is Dolphins versus Roosters. The Dolphins had 2 players sent off. Sorry, 7 for 10.
Yep.
And they didn't really do anything. Like, they just, like, Spencer Leniu walked up, squared up to him. The other guy squared up, but nothing happened. And so they've actually been reffing like this. And you go back a few more weeks, Munster and the Bulldogs, I'm pretty sure, there was a scuffle, and the Storm got the penalty against them, even though the Bulldogs were the first one to push and like make it a big thing because the Storm instigated. So, although I agree, in a perfect world, I don't think Hudson Young should have been sent 10 for the bin. I really don't. I will say that there are some people that are trying to like minimise it. They're like, oh, he was just lippy. He was just lippy. Mate, he ran 10 metres to get into his face. Let's not pretend like even some people are saying that Reece Walsh walked up to him and headbutted him. I'm like, no, let's be real on what happened. Hudson Young ran about 5 to 10 metres, got in his face, chest bumped him, rah. That shouldn't be 10 in the bin. I am all for that. Is outrageous. And but I think, listen, if the precedent has been set that you do send 10 in the bin if something kicks off, you definitely shouldn't have given the penalty to the Broncos.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that the Raiders came off worse in that situation than the Broncos, that is an outrage. An outrage. So the tough thing is that, and this is where I do actually empathise with the NRL. We always get angry when a little player niggles a big player because the big players no longer have the unwritten law of, I can punch you in the face. So you've got all these like little dummy halves chirping, pushing, head pushing, getting in their face because they don't have to worry about getting punched. So what the NRL have tried to say is, well, this is how because that's an advantage to the little guy now. The little guy that's all chirpy, he never has to worry about getting punched. So he can, be niggly, he can do all this little stuff. And so the NRL have tried to turn around and say, that is unfair on the big fella because back in the day, the laws of the jungle existed. The big boys got to, throw their weight around. No one got to say anything about it unless they wanted to get punched. So the NRL has tried to say, well, how we protect the big fella, because usually it's the big fella. Like, usually it's Reed Marnie running up to Hudson Young, chirping in his face. And so the NRL says, let's protect the big fella and say, if you run up, start chirping, you're going to. The problem is that we don't have adequate, fair punishment for it. So Hudson Young getting 10, whilst Reece got 10, that's ridiculous. But as I said, what I will say is a precedent has been set. That is how they have been reffing so far this year.
And what I'll say on the other side of that is the fact that Walsh was only sent for 10, I was happy with that decision because we've seen that during the year as well. If you talk about precedent, I think it was Morgan Smithies giving someone...
He didn't get 10 either.
He didn't get 10. So, I think that decision, all things considered, was correct. The outcome of it, Denon, do you buy into the theory that the Broncos maybe don't come back into that game if Carrigan and Walsh don't have that little reset period? I've heard this sort of theory. It's it's a theoretical.
Yeah, I'm not. It's hard to say.
Do they come back without that?
I don't. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I would like getting a few texts here saying so now it's a free go to do things like headbutt if you have a laugh and say something to the guy for dropping the ball. You've lost the plot. Did you just listen to what I said, bro? Did you just listen to what I said? I said that it shouldn't be 10 in the bin, and you're so caught up in your feelings that you've just totally not heard what I said. I'm telling you what the NRL has looked at and said. Now, I think one area where I think people aren't being, they're being a bit like half-truth with it. He didn't just like chirp him. It wasn't just like, your bloke knocked the ball on and kept walking. He ran from 5 metres away, got in his face. Now, and someone said, if Mulatalo gets in the face, then should he be sent to 10 in the bin? No, he shouldn't be. But if a fight starts because of it, the NRL, guys, I can't say this clear enough. I'm getting more messages. The NRL have set the precedent. I don't agree with it. I'm telling you what the NRL have been doing. And so that's just like, don't shoot the messenger, bro. I'm just recounting what the NRL has done. Do I think it's fair that someone coming up and chirping in the face and then Reece Walsh headbutts him, they both get sent for 10? No, it's not. Reece Walsh should learn to control himself in that situation. It's that simple. It is that simple. I am just telling you what the NRL's perspective on is you can't say big fellas are not allowed to punch anymore, but then also we're not going to protect you from the little guy that's being niggly all game long and chirping you and getting in your face and whatever. So, that like, as I said, I don't agree with it. That's just what's been going on. Again, another text here. That's crap beat. Sledging is part of the game. The case players like Mulatalo would be binned permanently. Your bias is way too transparent. What if all positions were reversed? Like, bro, what are you talking about? Like that. all that's happening here is your bias. You're just assuming that I'm being biased because I'm a fan of the Broncos. And so in regards to that, in regards to the suspension though, so he got 1 week. Again, no, sorry, he didn't get any weeks. He got a grade 1 striking. Now let me be really clear. So because some of you guys are so caught in your feelings, you're not listening to what I'm saying. I believe a headbutt should be a week-long suspension. If you headbutt someone, regardless of the environment, if it shows enough evidence that you've intentionally headbutted them, it should be a week. Okay? So that's my opinion on it. What the NRL has done, so this is not my opinion anymore, they haven't been suspending people for headbutts. Saifiti last year headbutted Reid Marnie. Then Morgan Smithies headbutted Bolle, I think it was. Hard enough where there was claret, like blood coming all down his face. They were both given a grade 1 striking, I'm pretty sure, which isn't a suspension, it's a fine. So I don't think it's fair that the NRL all year long say a headbutt like that, harder headbutts than what Reece Walsh has done, isn't a suspension, but then when Walsh does it, is a suspension. Now, some people go, oh, well, because it's Reece Walsh, that's why he didn't get suspended. If it was a smaller player, he would have got suspended. Well, Morgan Smithies is not a big-known player. And I don't even think he got 10 in the bin.
No.
And his headbutt was, like, pretty traumatic.
It was a full wind-up and bang with the ball in his hands at the same time.
So all I'm saying is I think Morgan Smithy should have got 1 week. I think Saifiti should have got 1 week. However, because the NRL has set the precedent, they didn't get 1 week. I don't think Reece Walsh should have got 1 week. Now, in regards to the Paddy Carrigan situation,
yes,
I think that's a far more serious situation. Now, some people try to lean on the whole, Reece Walsh is a role model and all that kind of stuff. We can't be throwing in if they're a role model or not on how we punish people. Like that's not what proper justice is supposed to be. Yep. Is he a role model? Okay, we'll punish him harder because he's a role model. Is he not a role model? Okay, we won't punish him harder. I actually think the luckiest guy out of all this is Carrigan. That was dangerous. I understand what he was trying to do, and I love that from a Broncos fan. He was trying to arc the boys up, big hit, get the momentum back, but that's the stuff that we're trying to stamp out of the game. If you shoot up out of line, you better make sure you don't hit someone in the head. So if you want to have the argument that he got lucky, I am with you. Paddy Carrigan got super lucky. Maestro?
No, I tend to agree. I think that was the decision that was most right over the course of that game. And now, interesting, because you guys have got the Broncos have got a Sunday Arvo grand final qualifier. Denner, do you think that'll play any part, the longer recovery given to that team playing on the Friday night if the Storm come through it or Canberra or Cronulla find their way through to the grand final? Are you worried about that at all? The NRL going against the grain a little bit there?
No, I don't think so. Like I think this is just being kicked up for a bit of talking. Something to talk about in the media. Like, there are so many games you have all year long where you've had 7 days, I've had 8 days. Like, don't get me wrong, in a perfect world, we would try and make everything even. Like, of course. But let's be real here. Like, 7 days, 9 days, like, I don't think internally the Broncos are sitting there going, oh, man, like, as in the playing group, oh, man, we only get 7 days, they get 9 days. Like, really, this is just the way sport is set up. Now, maybe you could say, okay, the Broncos should be on a Saturday and then the Friday game or whatever, so they get a day extra. But you got to understand, like, this is a business too.
Yes.
Sunday Arvo.
Well, this is the bit I can't understand is why they haven't done this before. It was fantastic on Sunday, right? You had that game at GIO. We're going to have this massive crowd at a core stadium this weekend for Bulldogs versus Panthers. I think it's a great chance for, Suncorp would have been packed out either way. But to have that, the ratings that were coming in out of the game on Sunday were record numbers. I think they'll just sort of tot up as we get through the games leading up to the grand final. I'd love to move the grand final to a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, I'm an Arvo footy guy.
Yeah.
I think Arvo footy, and we're going to speak about it in the next break because we're going to talk about the actual game. Okay, last text. How many sledges has it been this season? Lots. And how many have been sent to the bin? Hardly any. So the NRL rarely uses that rule. You forgot one key part of it though, mate. You forgot the other guy headbutting someone. You can sledge someone, and if no one does anything about it, the NRL will let it go. But if a fight starts, that's the bit of the you're intentionally not adding to that little sentence you've put in. So listen, we're going to go to a break. We've got thousands of texts to get to. We'll get to them. Don't worry about that. But we've got plenty more to talk about. We're going to go to a break, and we're going to get in deep to Raiders v Broncos. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Alrighty, let's get into it, shall we? The game. The game, it was absolutely amazing. Raiders versus the Broncos. I will say, and this maybe is my bias coming through, but I would say a Raiders-Broncos grand final. It would be spicy. It would be spicy. Okay, got a text here from Azza. The MRC step up earlier with the grading of headbutts. They need to be treated like high tackles and graded according to the hit. Reese's headbutt was no different to throwing punches whilst holding the jersey. Pretty lame in reality. Fine, warning, and move on. Azza from DY. I do think there is a sense, though, like headbutt, there is a social... It's much more negative socially than a punch. Like a headbutt is, and I don't know why, but it just is. Like there is a certain level of uncouthness with a headbutt compared to a punch. So I do think it is a little bit worse than in regards to just a punch kind of thing. Hey, Kempy, I didn't get all the fuss. I'd love to be headbutted by Walshy. He's one a hot piece of ass. Little cutie. Jono from Forbes. That's good stuff. All I'm hearing right now is loophole for making an error. If you drop the ball and someone gives you a spray, you should deliberately react and start a push and shove because by the NRL definition, you will receive the penalty. Well, not really, because if you start pushing and shoving and they don't react, then you're going to get a penalty against you. I put it this way. I understand the argument of, okay, next someone gets lippy to me, I'll punch them so we both go for 10. I get that, but geez, that's a risky way to be playing finals footy because if there's one thing we're not, it's consistent. So if you're willing to risk that to get an upper hand on your opposition, geez, it's risky. Because the argument is this, like, okay, a winger, Nathan Cleary chirps a winger. And the winger goes, oh, sweet, perfect opportunity, I'll chin Cleary. Then basically we both go for 10. It's a much more impact. It's a very risky way to be playing footy. Very risky way to play footy. Then there was another text basically down here saying that Walsh shouldn't have been done for the headbutt. He should have been done because he ran 10 metres in. And that's what you get done for. You may want to go rewatch it, mate. He definitely didn't run 10 metres in. It was Hudson Young ran to him, which is fine. Like I don't... I don't mind the chirp. I actually think I like the chirp. I actually think Hudson Young running in and doing that, because we've had the punch taken away, I like it because that's what makes these games so interesting. If you take away chirp and getting in each other's faces, and granted, I would say like head pushing, get rid of that because like that is a weird area. Like what's the difference between a head push and a punch? Not much. But just chirping, I think that like that adds spice to the clash. That adds to the occasion. Like that's what made that game so fiery and so good. And the responsibility, I think a good line is the physical side of it. Did you push? Like, did you push them, touch them? Like, and I mean, when I say touch, I mean actually physically. Did you headbutt them or whatever? But I think if you're just in their face yapping, I don't think that should be 10 in the bin. I really, really don't think. It is I think a really good line we could draw in it is, did you run in and push them and make it physical? That's where I go. Now, funnily enough, someone actually, if you wanted to get technical, even though I don't think the Raiders should have been, I think the Raiders should have got the penalty, and I don't think Hudson Young should have been sent for 10. But if you want to get technical, Tarpiner did run in, third man in, and push Walsh. And that is 10 in the bin these days, even though I don't agree with it, because, like, once things kick off, you've got to have some kind of defense for yourself. Anyway, in regards to the game, look, I actually think the Raiders can take a lot out of this. And I know that, yes, they didn't get the one thing that matters. I get it. I really do. And that's all that really does matter in these games. But, mate, they physically dominated the Broncos for, like, 60 minutes of that game. And it took a generational freakish performance, or 15 minutes, from one of the game's most talented players, mixed in with the right side of the Raiders, whose defense has been suspect for quite a while. For even with all that going against them in regards to Ross, whatever, they still nearly won the game 3 times. So I really do. Look, as long as they're not too banged up, as long as they're not too tired, I really like the odds of the Raiders still finding their way into the grand final. I really do. They dominated nearly all the right stats for most of the game. It was just a mixture of so many different things that, like, for example, the Stewart situation.
Yeah.
If he just misses that ball by an inch, doesn't touch his hand, they win. If Hudson Young doesn't skip across field and get Fogarty on his bad side for the drop goal, he probably nails it. If Hosking just pulls out a little bit earlier, you know what I mean? Like, there are so many times where the Raiders performance, put themselves in a position to win it at least 3 or 4 times. And that's where I look at it and go, I'm still really high on the Raiders. Like, I really... And also, they both teams completed at such a low percentage compared to other teams. If they complete... I mean, look what the Broncos did with the Storm when they completed around 90%. If the Raiders can complete... You know what the Raiders remind me of? A little bit like the 2023 Broncos, where if they complete at a high percentage but still play their footy, I don't know who beats them. I honestly don't know. Even you go back to their Penrith Panthers win, their completion rate was really poor in that game. They had so many errors. So I'm still really high on the Raiders. What do you think, Matt?
I tend to agree with you, Kempy. I think they're still a great shout. I actually think that the test this weekend, coming off that emotional low, I guess, the 2 highs and then the low, is going to be a bigger one than... I know going to Melbourne and playing the Storm down there is not easy in anyone's language, but given what's happened this week and the fact they've played 93 minutes of footy, that is a big test to even hosting the Sharks this week. And Trindle, the way he played on the weekend, like they're going to have a test going to that edge again. The blueprint's there on how to score points against them quickly. The Broncos have provided that for them. If it wasn't clear already, I think Ricky's got a big task on his hands to get these guys back up, to fix up those little areas where they did have issues against the Broncos. And then if they can push off the back of that and go down to Melbourne, the siege mentality, everything strikes me as though they'll be able to get through that game if they can get to that point. I don't know if you agree or... Is
this the Raiders or the Sharkies?
The Raiders.
Yeah.
If they can get through this first week, I think this is a bigger test for them, even than the trip to Melbourne.
Yeah, look, I get... I said last week, I feel like the Sharkies aren't getting respected. I feel like they're confidently got a bunch of wins under their belt. So this is going to be a tough... You're right. Like, it's the emotional high of it as well. And so, look, Melbourne Storm, though, with Hughes back, like, because he'll be back for that period.
Yeah.
Down in Melbourne as well, that's a tough ask. It'd be a coin flip for me.
And that's the difficult thing, right? The road there is probably the more difficult side of the draw, if you can put it that way. I know the Broncos are playing well, but to go down to Melbourne at the moment, it's going to be very, very tough.
Oh, absolutely. Got some other texts here in regards to Ashley Klein and his refereeing. Has it disappeared here? Surely it hasn't disappeared. Okay, surely after losing control during that match and inventing a misdemeanor to cover his confusion, surely Klein can't possibly be considered for grand final referee. Okay, I hope you can just go through the nuance with me, guys, in the grey area here. According to the way the NRL have been reffing, Klein didn't do anything wrong. So we can all have an opinion, and my opinion is that Hudson Young, crazy they got it sent off, and also crazy they got a penalty against him. But this is the way they have been reffing this year. So, like, you guys know me, if there is a ref that has a shocker, like you go to that Warriors game with the knock-on from Blaze to Lungy, and then a 6-metre forward pass, and arguably a double movement. I didn't think it was a double movement, but I can understand the frustration what's there. Klein reffed the way the NRL has been reffing. And so... in their eyes, he handled it fine.
And the report this week is that he is still the favourite to take on that grand final appointment.
Yeah,
so
because
he's been given this game this week. Yeah, that's a show of faith in him, I think.
Yeah, and as I said, like, Klein reffed according to the NRL correctly. Now, I think where people are getting lost in the noise is all of our opinion is you shouldn't get sent 10 in the bin for getting in someone's face and getting lippy. The problem is they have made a stance, the NRL, saying if you instigate the fight or the penalty or whatever, you will be punished for it. So that's where I think a lot of the lost in the noise is kind of happening. In regards to, before we wrap up real quickly, I applaud the video ref for being brave enough on that Jed Stewart one.
It was a massive call, wasn't it? And it was borderline, but I think it was clear enough to overturn.
I think it was a correct call.
Yeah.
I think it was a correct call, but I like... the easy decision there would have been like not conclusive. And the video ref didn't do that, and I think that they should be applauded for that. I really do. Also, just quickly, I thought Ricky Stewart handled this with so much grace. We're all expecting a blower, but he didn't. And he gave his opinion on the Hudson Young one being 7 for 10, which I think most of us kind of agree with. I think he handled this as a leader should. I think he realised as a leader of that club, they didn't need for him to get up in the press conference going crazy and doing all this, like, misdirecting everything. He was calm, and it shows you why the Raiders are where they're at. In a moment of turmoil, their leader stayed calm and collected, and this is why they're at minor prems. This is why they're minor prems, and this is why Ricky Stewart, he will win Dally M Coach of the Year, in my opinion. Like, I really think he handled it perfectly. And what I liked about it as well is he had enough strength to take himself out of the situation and be like, the game won tonight. Because the game did win. Like, obviously, as a Broncos fan, I'm going to say that because, but he's absolutely right. Like, that was two champion teams refusing to give in. And he was on the losing end, and he held himself with a lot of credit. And I'll always go back to that 2019 grand final.
Yep.
I said the same thing about Ricky Stewart. I thought he handled himself and look, we all have jokes about how passionate Ricky is, and I think he is such a credit to the game because he does add energy. And you don't want your coach going in there all the time just going yes sir, no sir, whatever, but like really boring. I want to see passion. I want to see how you feel. But then when the time calls for it, I want to see leadership. And I think Ricky Stewart in 2019 showed leadership, and I think on the weekend he showed strength, leadership, and he showed why the Raiders won the minor premiership by 2 games. We're going to head to a break. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Alrighty, now on to the Brisbane Broncos. Man, it's incredible. It's incredible. And seeing those scenes of Mike Maguire, speaking to coaches, like both Ricky Stewart and Mike Maguire, that's why we love rugby league. Seeing those blokes, how passionate they can be, but also leadership when they need to be. But seeing those scenes of him in the box, that is rugby league. That is rugby. That's a bloke. This is his life. This is his calling. And what a great year from Michael Maguire. If you said, first year, I'll get this team to a prelim, I think most people would have said, mate, well done. And granted, I will say, talent-wise, they absolutely should be in a prelim. But first year, I think even with the roster they had, a lot of people thought, you know what, it's going to take some growing pains to get through this. I think the most surprising thing with the Broncos is the playing roster that I'll be honest, even I thought there'd be at least 3 or 4 players that wouldn't really gel well with Mike Maguire. That the hard-nosed, old-school style of training they might struggle with. Now, there could be a mixture of 2 things. Michael Maguire has developed as a coach, and this whole old-school thing, it's not really attached to him anymore. Maybe you could have said it about him 10 years ago, but now, yeah, he trains hard, but it's much more measured, potentially. So there's that. And I do actually think that's quite likely. But also, I think this Broncos playing group deserve massive credit for everyone said that they weren't hard enough to handle Mike Maguire. Mate, if you read the article before the game on the weekend, these players couldn't have said nicer things about Mike Maguire. They are all on board. They're so on board. A guy like Selwyn Cobbo, who could get a big deal somewhere else, signed a 1-year deal with the Dolphins and has been quoted, said, who knows, I might come back. And, that's Selwyn Cobbo, one of the guys who you would have thought maybe he wouldn't have suited Michael Maguire's methods. He loves the place so much he wants to come back. And so the Brisbane Broncos, look, them at their best, they're going to be hard to beat. But the problem with the Broncos is, can they play 80 minutes of their best footy, even on the weekend? It's going to paint over the cracks a little bit, but they looked, especially when the game was on the line, some of the stuff they were doing was just what is going on here? Getting caught on the 5th and last and going from side to side instead of setting up for a field goal. So, look, the positive is they know at their best they can go with anyone in the NRL, but it's just about making sure they don't get ahead of themselves, because that was my worry with the Storm win was oh, yeah, we beat the Storm. Okay, let's go back to the old Broncos where we're just willy-nilly throwing the ball everywhere. They're going to be a tough team to beat. I will say what I've been surprised at, and the Broncos have been part of this as well, a lot of people have said, okay, Billy Walters is out. Okay, so that means that Ben Hunt might go to 6, Reynolds to 7. I reckon Ezra Mann will be back.
Oh, is that male or is that
no,
just
it's not
vibes?
male. It's not male. It's not male at all. All I know is he did his hammy 5-6 weeks ago.
You're right.
Unless it is the worst hammy you can do, it's right on time to get. And also with the way the science and the data they have these days, with the facilities they've got back up there, I reckon you'll probably see if Billy Walters is, because it said it's suspected, but it's not looking good. I think you'll see Ezra Mam at 6. I think you'll see Hunt at 9, and I think you'll see Reynolds at 7.
Are you happy with that little lineup? I mean, who wouldn't be,
I
right?
mean,
there'd be plenty of teams in the competition pretty jealous of that little cartel.
I'm happy, but I will say, out of all of those players, bizarrely, Billy Walters has been our best.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy. Billy Walters, out of Reynolds, Mann, and Hunt, has been our best half.
Hunt didn't play that well on the weekend, basically until the extra time period, right?
Which is you know what? You've been through so
all
much.
All is forgiven.
Yeah, all is forgiven. Don't worry about it. Because even Hunt, he looked a bit rattled there.
Yeah.
And maybe it is because he hasn't played much of 7 this year, potentially. I'm not sure. But even he, you could see there was one where he dropped off Payne Haas. Yeah. And Payne Haas was blowing up, going what are you doing?
Yeah.
Let's get to a point in the field and go. Now, we know Benny Hunt's a champion. He'll be able to bounce back. But I think I'm calling it now. It'll be Hunt at 9. It'll be Reynolds at 7. And it'll be Ezra Mam at 6. And Reece Walsh will be the fullback.
I thought it was so indicative of their season, that performance over the weekend, wasn't it? It was getting themselves into trouble early. And then, funnily enough, for all the hammering that Michael Maguire has taken on the fitness and how hard he was working them, how bought in did they look?
Oh, mate.
During the comeback. The physicality was not a problem for them whatsoever. No. And the Raiders are the biggest test in the competition in terms of testing that in teams.
Yeah.
Over the course of the year. They looked the fitter of the two, I thought, on the run home. It's easy to say when they scored all those points, but...
I mean, again, even me, I said, look, we know Michael Maguire can get these guys red hot for the start of the season, but what does it mean for the back end of the season? They look as energized as any team in the comp right now. Again, this whole year has been a masterstroke from Michael Maguire. Like, he would have been walking a razor's edge with this roster because go too hard, they'll react poorly. Go too soft, you're going to be back where you were, 12. It's amazing what Michael Maguire's doing. So Ben Tolte has also signed a 2-year extension. I'm going to say this. Ben Tolte, without him signing at the club, I don't think we're in a prelim right now.
Wow.
That's how important he's been to our rotation. Yes, I understand it. Out of all the order, Haas, Carrigan, Jensen, Wilson when he's fit or whatever, he might be. But if you actually go and look at our rotation, if he wasn't here this year, we'd be bringing on, like Wilson's been injured.
Yep.
Like, I don't even know who we'd be bringing on through the middle. And when he does come on, he just does his job. As I said, I'm not pretending for a second that he's going to be playing better footy than Jensen or Carrigan or Haas. Maybe Jensen eventually, but Carrigan or Haas, I'm not making out like that. I'm being hyperbolic. But what I am saying is what this club needed out of him was a guy that's not too expensive, that comes on for 20 to 40 minutes and just tucks the ball under his arm and makes meters, tough meters. Tolte has been absolutely phenomenal at the Broncos, and it was a midway through the year signing with him. He wasn't even part of the squad at the start of the year. Again, another Michael Maguire stroke of brilliance. Like, to identify him at the North Sydney Bears in New South Wales Cup, out of all the people he could have chosen in the Queensland Cup, New South Wales Cup, to identify him, a guy that's 25, 26 years old, plays so well he gets a 2-year extension. Like, Tolte has been phenomenal. Like, that's... You need guys like Tolte and Jensen to do what they do to get into a prelim. Like, even on the weekend, like Haas, although Haas still played outstanding, like he was limping half the time.
Yep.
And so I just think Tolte, in the 2023 season where we made a grand final, the Broncos made a grand final, Jensen was our unsung hero. This year, if we make a grand final, or at the very least, even if we just make a prelim, Tolte has been the unsung hero of the Brisbane Broncos forward pack. It's that simple. It is that simple. We're going to head to a break. After the break, we've got plenty more to talk about, including the other finals games on the weekend. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Okay, let's get to some texts. The typical text, too much Broncos talks. Get them all the time. Anytime we talk about the Broncos on this show. I will say, since getting into podcasting, I never realised how much people hate the Broncos. Now being in podcasting, like if you do one segment about them, you'll get text, too much Broncos talk. It's actually hilarious. Okay, got some more text here. Kempy, I used to go for the Wars, but after Walsh headbutt, I'm loving the Broncos now. Wow. Okay, howdy, Denon. Bottom line, Fogarty missing that easy conversion. That's where they lost it. Penrith are morals. Cheers, McDuff. And look, I've spoken about this before. I do think Fogarty is probably the last part of his game he needs to round out is that big moment when the game's on the line. And he has done it before. He's won game with field goals before. But you actually go back to the Penrith game. He should have converted a goal, I think, that would have put them ahead and ended the game. Missed a couple of drop goal attempts there. So I reckon that's the last part of his game that he needs to round out. Now, granted, you have to remember, like, it's not like Fogarty has all this final experience and, been at this club that's gone deep into finals all the time. I think, he probably has, 2 or 3 games of final experience? Maybe more, 4 at most. So he'll round that out. Kemp, mate, this week's lineup for the Bulldogs, they're 1 through 17 in their positions. I think they're 10-point better team than last week. Your thoughts? Mate, isn't it so interesting? Like, if you had said all the drama throughout the year, everything that's happened, and granted, I understand injuries have kind of made it happen, but if you had said all the drama, everything, that in their last game of the season, potentially, they would end up running out with Sexton at 7, people would have said, mate, that's too crazy. Don't write that down. That is nonsense. There is no way in the world that they'll run out with Sexton, just on principle. Now, I got to say, I really do admire Serraldo's, really proving to everyone that he is always just selecting what is best for the club, what is best for the team. Because he easily could have looked at this and said, it makes it look like I'm going back on my word or going back on my earlier decisions. Instead, he said, no, my pride and ego is not the main focus here. It's putting the best team on the field. Because I'm sure they could have found some young centre to chuck in there instead of moving Burton to centre. They could have had Galvin and Burton in 6. So, look, I do think... Okay, so we got a message here. Fogarty's game on Sunday was his 4th finals game. So just further my point, it's not like he's this hyper-experienced number 7. He'll work it out. But yeah, with the Doggies, I have to be honest, outside of, I still would have Marnie at 9 and I would have Hayward at 13 or 14. But outside of that, I actually think they're a better side with Sexton at 7 and Galvin at 6. Whether you want to argue Galvin at... Burton at 6 and Galvin doesn't make the side, potentially, at this stage of his career. However, I do think Burton at centre is outstanding. He kills it. So, I actually probably think that their best side for me anyway, right now, it is Sexton at 7, Galvin at 6, Marnie at 9, Burton in the centres. And then I would probably go Hayward at 13. Now, maybe size-wise, you don't want him starting. You just want Salmon to get through the tough stuff, and then you bring him on 14. But, look, the tough thing is they desperately need Critter back. That's a tough thing. We'll get to it later in the show, though. We'll go deep in it. Okay, we're going to head to a break. After the break, plenty more to talk about, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Proudly brought to you by Longtel Internet. That's right, they've just released their new multi-gig. Now, the average Australian household's about 100 megabits. The new multi-gig, 2,000 megabits. And we've got a code. Go to Longtel, LAUNTEL.net.au. Go to residential, put your address in. If you use code BLOKE, you get the first 7 days free. You get $25 credit. And top of all that, no credit cards, no locking contracts. Seriously, guys, and they're about to install some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen into the studio tomorrow. I can't wait to announce that. And so massive thank you to Longtel. And also, I was gaming all week, thanks to Longtel. Terence Crawford. I had Terence Crawford, and I had Canelo, 4K. I had, then after that was a footy. Then I had also things downloading. Then I also had Borderlands 4 in front of me. It was the greatest thing ever, thanks to Longtel. Okay, the Roosters are beaten by the Sharkies on the weekend. The Roosters finished 8th. The Sharkies finished 5th. Let's talk a bit about the Sharkies, and then we'll get into the Roosters. But with the Sharkies, so there was some comments this week with, basically Nico Hines saying, we do feel like we don't probably get the respect that we deserve as a club. But we got to the audio just here.
I'll just say that no one ever gives us a chance, and I feel like if we beat some good teams or when we win, it's always because who's injured or if they didn't play well. I don't think credit's where it's due sometimes for us.
Mate, you know what? I agree. And I know the easy answer is, the reason why you don't get credit is because you haven't won a premiership or you didn't get into a prelim here or this is your results over the last 10 years. Well, this squad has nothing to do with the last 10 years. Judging this squad on the last 10 years, it's a bit unfair. Let's just look at what this squad's done. So since Fitzy took over, they were coming 9th or 10th. 2 years before Fitzy took over, they were averaging about 20 points a season, 22 points a season. Since he has taken over, they are averaging about 34 points a season. Whereas this year, if you're on 22 points, you don't make the 8. Matter of fact, if you're on 22 points, you are finishing 15th. Okay, so now, so anyway, you're finishing at 15th. So they've averaged but those were years where they were finishing 10th, I think, at 9th or 10th, and I think one of them they finished 8th. Anyway, since Fitzy took over, they've averaged about 34 points, 32 to 36, in that range. Now, so when he did that, we were all happy. All started to say, wow, what an incredible first year from Fitzy. Then the next question was, they can't beat top-tier sides. And that was the next step of, let's take these Sharkies seriously. So the first couple of years, you could say that was the question. Then last year, they did beat top-tier sides. Then the next question was, with this current squad under Fitzy, the next question was, they can't win a finals game. Well, they won a finals game last year, and they've just won a finals game here. Under Fitzy, they have continually improved. Now, if your argument is at the start of the year, a lot of us had as premiership heavyweights, and they probably don't look like that this year, fair enough. But I think that's a world away from all the negativity the Sharkies get. You can say, okay, they probably didn't reach the heights we thought they would, but still say they had a pretty good season still. And so that's where I tend to agree with Nico Hines, because even now, people say that the Sharkies can't beat top-tier teams. Like, that still hangs around on them. They were literally a second away from beating the Raiders. They beat the Bulldogs this year. They beat the Melbourne Storm this year. Last year, in Melbourne, they beat the Melbourne Storm. And so I agree with Hines. I think that even when they do make progress, again, take your mind back to last year. Everyone was like, bro, they can't win finals games, so who cares? Even if they do come 5th or 4th, doesn't matter. Then they do win a finals game, and then the goalpost is something else. And so I agree. I think that heading into this game against the Roosters, even though they finished 5th, they were heavy underdogs. What were they, like 250 or something like that?
Yeah.
At home against 8th. If that doesn't tell you that they aren't probably given the proper respect they deserve, matter of fact, they've won something like 9 from 10 or 7 from 8. So it's not even like this Shark side was going into finals footy as in bad form. Like, they were going into finals footy with 7 from 8 or something like that. And yet, at home, they finished 5th, Roosters finished 8th. They were heavy underdogs. And I want to be clear too, this isn't me coming from hindsight hero, like after they win, I get to beat my chest. I actually picked them to win. Not because I was so sure about it, just because I thought it was essentially a coin toss. And so I tend to agree with Nico. I do think as a smaller club, and they are literally one of the smallest, like their average crowds are less than the Titans. They're a really small club. So they don't have as much weight to throw around in the headlines and the medias and the connections. I mean, right now, we spent the last week basically hounding them because their stadium is too small. And, like, why is their stadium too small? That's not the Sharkies' fault. Like, they get no government grants. They got no connections to make it big. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so whereas these other clubs that are mammoth clubs, you know, the Roosters, they openly say we had a lot to do with Allianz being created. You reckon Sharkies have the pull to do that? No way. No way. And so that's where I tend to agree with Nico. I don't think they get the respect they deserve. I think they came into this game quietly confident. And also, just look at the way they played on the weekend. They played like it looked like the Roosters were the ones that were a bit rattled and the moment was kind of getting to them a little bit. The Sharkies looked calm and collected the whole time. On top of all that, when you actually look at their roster, like they are the only roster in finals footy with no Origin players. Now, if you want to say to me, well, Adam Fanua-Blake would play Origin, fair enough. I'll pay that. I'll pay that. But even a lot of these other teams, they have Kiwi internationals and Origin players. Like, for example, the team that they just played on the weekend, they ran out with, I just get it up. Sorry, guys, taking time. So the team they ran out, this is the forward pack comparison. This is the Sharkies forward pack. Adam Fanua-Blake, Toby Rudolph, Billy Burns, Teague Walton, Jesse Colquhoun. And I say this respectfully. Honestly, 3 out of those 4 wouldn't make benches of a lot of these top 8 sides. And they're much better players than I ever was. I'm just, being honest. I wouldn't make any of these sides, so let's just be real here. Okay, that was compared against Spencer Lenu, Lindsay Collins, both Origin players, Angus Crichton, Origin players, Victor Radley, could play Origin, but he chose to go over to England. He's an England international. White, Kiwi player. So the entire starting pack of the Roosters is Origin player. Matter of fact, to go a step further, Connor Watson is an Origin player. Blake Brayley, not an Origin player yet. And yet they just beat the Roosters, and no one's sitting there going, what an incredible win. Everyone goes, the Roosters played really poorly. And so I'm with Nico. I'm with them. I don't think they get the respect they deserve. I think that people go, they haven't won a premiership. It's like, mate, it's hard to win premierships. Like, if you think about all the teams that have been in and out of the 8 that have so many more resources, a better team on paper, they get half the negative headlines that the Sharkies get. Like, I'll even talk about this. Like, What are the Roosters? How come they're not getting hammered right now? Whereas if the Sharkies went out, I guarantee the headlines would be like, yeah, pretenders. Roosters aren't getting hammered right now.
Can we go to the Roosters, Kempy? What do you make of their season? There was a lot of people tipping them to slip this year. They did fall a little bit, but they still managed to scrape their way into finals, lost a lot of players, but then managed to sign someone like Mark Norwin-Itawase,
Just
who
before
made
we move
such
on,
an influence.
we just got a text here. The Sharks own their ground. It's not local New South Wales government facility. But you can own your ground and have partnerships with the government. It's a local ground that I'm sure the local community uses. So that doesn't really factor into it. Anyway, in regards to the Roosters, yep.
Well, lost a lot of players, but ID'd guys that came in and made an impact for them. Beat the Storm down in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, but we're inconsistent all year, I think it's fair to say. They lost games throughout the year that they should have won, and then perhaps won some games that people expected them to fall down in. Is 8th a pass mark, given all the players they lost?
It is for their season, but I don't think that finals performance is a pass mark at all. Sorry, we're just getting more text. Kempy, let's be honest. They lost the past 7 first-round finals games. Again, that's a totally different roster, a totally different coach, at least, 4 of them. Or even if it's the same one. You look at their last 2 years. The criticism of the club is warranted. They've had the easiest draw of the year. See, that's what I mean. You've just given this whole out for why they're going well, the Sharkies. Oh, because they've had an easy draw. So they're in second week of the finals because they have an easy draw. Let me read some of these other teams that didn't even make the finals. Dolphins didn't make the finals. They just beat the Roosters, which obviously we read out. Sea Eagles didn't make the finals. Cowboys, with 5 Origin players, didn't make the finals. Tigers, 13th, solid. Rabbitohs, a lot of injuries, but they still didn't make the finals. Dragons, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's always, this is what I feel like people like me are saying, there's always an excuse for the Sharkies, why they went well. There's never like, considering how big they are as a club, considering that roster, they're going okay. Are they going great? No, but they're going pretty good. In regards to the Roosters, look, I think the story of the Roosters year, and I said this before the game, the story of the year is how good of a development year it has been for the Roosters. Trent Robinson's ability to develop some of these young guys. However, I will say, and I kind of alluded to it before, yes, they lost a lot of players. There's no denying that. This was their team on the weekend. Tedesco's going to win the Dally M. Tupou, he's an Origin-level winger. Billy Smith, good player. Toya debuted in Origin. Nawanga-Itawase will probably win. He'll get close to winning Dally M Winger of the Year. Would have won Rookie of the Year. Savala, yep, he's on paper not solid, but he's had a great year and he's part of that development story I was talking about. Sam Walker, one of the best young sevens coming through the grades. Spencer Leniu, Origin. Connor Watson, Origin. Lindsay Collins, Origin. Angus Crichton, Origin. Victor Radley, a top-tier player. We can all agree there. White, one of been a top 5 front row all year, plays for the Kiwis as well. And so like that, although they have lost players, that is still a really good roster. So I think that they can take a lot of pride out of how they handled the year, considering Sam Walker and Billy Smith were out. But I do think the age-old question with the Roosters is, when they get into finals footy, if anything, you could flip the argument on the Roosters that the Sharkies have been getting since 2018-19. They haven't fired a shot in finals footy. And look at that roster. People want to get into the Sharkies about not having a solid finals performance. Like, what have the Roosters done in the last 5 years? And when did Fitzy take over? 2023?
2023, yeah.
22. 22, I think.
22, yes. Got that up now? Yes.
Matter of fact, could you get up for me how many finals games the Roosters have won since 2020? Because, again, that's where you could look at that roster and say, mate, that roster should be winning some finals games. Because right now, since 2022, the Sharkies have won 2 finals games. So I'd be interested to see how much more the Roosters have won, because that roster is absolutely, should be winning finals footy. Matter of fact, I'll even go to the Broncos. The Broncos have massively underachieved over the last 5 years. Massively. When you consider that roster, and granted they're in a good spot now, they were a good spot 2023, but that 2020 wooden spoon they won, it's the worst wooden spoon in the history of the game, in my opinion, when you look at that roster and how they won it. So I just think there are much bigger clubs that you can be super harsh on that warrant the harshness over the Sharkies. Whereas the Roosters at the moment, what's exciting for me is the development. Now, the big question heading into next year, though, is the DCE situation.
Yeah.
It is just hanging over our heads of what's going to go on there. Have you got the number there by any chance?
2 wins since the 2022 finals.
Where's all their negative headlines?
Knocked out first week in 2022, made the second week in 2023, made the prelim final last year, but that was from the top 4. So lost first week, beat Manly, and then were knocked out.
So they've had 2 wins since 2020.
2022.
22.
When
So
Fitzy took over.
the same amount as the Sharkies. Where's all their negative headlines? And that's where I think some Sharkies fans, I don't know about all of them, that's where I think some Sharkies fans look at. We get all these negative headlines about we're pretenders and we can't go deep into finals and we can't be top-tier sides. But these are these way bigger clubs. You know, you take out the 2023 season, and obviously this year they're going really well. The Broncos are in the same boat.
Yeah.
Like, if you take out 2023, and this year's great, but we haven't finished this year, the Broncos are in the same boat as the Roosters. And so that's where I think, that's where I think that the frustration comes from with Sharkies fans. And look, I'm a Sharky glazer. I glaze them all the time, baby, because I just think although they haven't achieved how much we hope they would have, I still think they've had a good, solid last couple of years. We're going to head to a break. After the break, we've got plenty more to talk about, including the Warriors and the Panthers. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Lontel Internet. If you want the internet that I've been hooked up with, go to Lontel, LAUNTEL.net.au. Go to residential, put your address in, use code BLOKE, 7 days free, and then $25 credit. And also no contracts, no credit cards. And it is, honestly, I'm a wizard when I'm on Lontel Internet. Okay, so I've got quite a few texts. And I will be fair, the texts have been, listen, I understand your point. I don't disagree necessarily with what you're saying in regards to the Roosters, but there have been quite a few texts about Roosters and the injuries they've had going into these finals since 2022. So I said, you know what? That's a fair point. Let's go back and look at the squads they had in their last finals game since 2022. So in 2022, their last squad was James Tedesco, Daniel Tupou, Momorowski, Hutchinson, Suoli'i, Luke Keary, Sam Walker, Hargreaves, Verrills, Tokiauho, Angus Crichton, Nat Butcher, Victor Radley, Connor Watson, Egan Butcher, Adam Kieran, and Matthew Lodge. So that was 2022 squad. Pretty good squad, in my opinion. Okay, then the next year, in the final game of the season, their squad was Tedesco, Ponga, Momorowski, Corey Allen, Jackson Paulo, Luke Keary, Sam Walker, Fletcher Baker, Brandon Smith, Lindsay Collins, Sua Wong, Nat Butcher, Victor Radley, Sandon Smith, Egan Butcher, Terrell May, and Angus Crichton. Again, although that is probably one of their weaker rosters, it's still more Origin players than the Sharkies roster currently. Okay, then this would have been 2024, I think. Their roster was James Tedesco, Daniel Tupou, Suoli'i, Joseph Manu, Dominic Young, Luke Keary, Sandon Smith, Hargreaves, Connor Watson, Lindsay Collins, Angus Crichton, Satili Tupanoa, Victor Radley, Spencer Lenu, White, Nat Butcher, and Terrell May. Still solid rosters. And look, I'm not just picking out the Roosters. I think the Broncos are in the same boat in regards to when you look at their roster, that they, outside of 23, so you go back to 2020, that they have massively underachieved. So I'm not just picking out. So it's just, more my point is, when you look at the Sharkies roster and how small they are as a club, I feel like they get a bit hard done by in the media at times. Not everyone's entitled to their opinion, though, so there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, now on to the Warriors, beaten by the Panthers. Look, I think with the Warriors, it's just been a brave year. The big takeaway I have for the Warriors this year is, like, I didn't really give them much of a chance against the Penrith Panthers. A, because their form hasn't been great. B, a couple of injuries here or there. But the Panthers are Penrith Panthers. What I do like about the Warriors year is if this same amount of injuries happened to them 5-6 years ago, I honestly reckon they might have finished 14th. Whereas this new Warriors that have a standard they expect from their players, regardless who's wearing the jersey, that push through things, that are mentally strong, even though the back end of the year wasn't great, they'd done enough work to hang on and make the 8. And I think that's very admirable. You look at their reserve grade side, we've spoken about it quite a bit. Reserve grade side won the minor premiership by, literally with 3 or 4 rounds to go. They won like a 13-game win streak. So really, I think it's been a great year for the Warriors. It's just about, next year when they get everyone back, how they go. Now, onto the Penrith Panthers. I mean, it's a tough one because Glass half full or glass half empty. If you look at a glass half full, you're saying clinical. Yeah, a couple of calls went their way, but they were going to win that match regardless. Even if that knock on that Talangi had or the forward pass, I still feel like they would have won that game. Glass half empty would be, the Warriors haven't been going great. How much of a measurement is that? But I just think right now, Penrith Panthers are probably the scariest side to play for the rest of this whole final series. Because even you look at the Raiders, them at their best, very scary. Broncos, them at their best, very scary. But although that game was entertaining on Sunday, it definitely wasn't clinical. Like heaps of errors. The Melbourne Storm got the win, not that convincing. The Bulldogs, decimated by injury at the moment, and also not that convincing, a lot of changes. Right now, the Penriths are at full strength for the first time for the whole year. They're refreshed, they're rested. It is a scary prospect playing this Penrith Panthers side. They are ready to go. They are fully fit. I mean, yeah, they are going to be tough to beat in this final series. What do you reckon, Maestro?
I agree with you on that point. No one wants to run into them. Four-time premiers, made the last 5 grand finals. They've been there before. They know what it takes. Even going away from home all the way through this final series, I think they're going in as favourites to the game against the Bulldogs this weekend. Packed house, going to be up for that. They're very familiar with those surroundings. Nathan Cleary, I thought, was fabulous.
Yeah.
On the weekend.
Him, Toto and Martin look super fresh, ready to go.
Those guys that have been playing in those big games for so long just arrived at what needed to be done on the weekend more than worrying about how they played. It wasn't about that. It was about getting the result, getting back home, and then refocusing for this game over the weekend. Just quickly back to the Wires. Leke Halasima, Rookie of the Year?
Him or Iongi.
Okay.
Him or Iongi. I do think, Leka, he did seem to, lose a bit of energy towards the end. He still had these big moments, but it would be him or Iongi for me.
Okay. And then Luke Metcalf, when he comes back into that side for the Warriors next year, is he going to be able to stave off a second-year syndrome, for example?
He's been around long enough.
He was strong enough.
But he's been around for ages. It's not like...
It was a breakout.
It's not like he's 18 years old.
True.
And it's like he's been around for years. He's debuted years and years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, literally. But with the Panthers, the biggest, I guess, concern is what's going on with Mitch Kenny.
Yeah.
Because, we talked about Tulty being an unsung hero for the Broncos. There's levels to unsung heroes, and Mitch Kenny might be the most unsung hero in rugby league. His service to Cleary, his line speed, he leads all of it for the Penrith Panthers. Mate, they rely so heavily on it. So really interested to see what happens there because they have kept that so under wraps. It's been crazy. Absolutely crazy. So I will say, and they'll, knowing the Panthers, they'll fix it. 2 of their line breaks they conceded were all on the McLean-Talangi edge. So if I'm a team playing them, I'd be going straight there just to see where they're at. And if they miss some tackles early, maybe you can go, okay, their head's not on. Or if they make some, early good tackles, okay, we go away from them and might come back later. But that's probably one area. Whereas, the Panthers have gone into most final series where you would literally look at it and go, I don't know where the weak point is.
Yeah.
I'm either running at Nathan Cleary or Jerome Luai on the other side with Tungo, who Tungo during the season defensively can be hit or miss. But as soon as he gets into finals footy, Tungo just works it out. Critter on the other edge, obviously. Whereas this is really the first year where you could say there is a youth section of McLean and Talangi who they may be fine, but there's just that question there.
Last question, Dylan Edwards, who was improved, I think, over the weekend from the week before where those errors made some headlines.
Mate, he still made a couple of errors in this one too.
Right. So is that a worry for them as well?
Yeah, for sure. They've relied their whole game plan is built around him making no mistakes.
Yeah.
Ball in play, fatigue gets built. Ball in play, fatigue gets built. Their whole game plan is built around you kick it to him, he's guaranteed to return it. If he makes errors, that changes everything. Not only do they not keep the ball in play, but they now are defending their own end. So I hope he'll fix it. I think the biggest question not the biggest question because a premiership is his main focus, but I do think that I would be picking Tedesco on the Australian side at this stage.
That was the next question I was going to ask. If they take one, will they take 2 fullbacks?
It's probably Tedesco and Walsh.
Tedesco and Walsh, you're in favour of that?
I think so. And it just, that's how ruthless this Australian outside backside it can be at times. You have a bit of a, drop off.
Yep.
And you're gone. Like, and I think Edwards can earn his way back in.
3 games.
But yeah, just crazy. It's crazy what can happen there. So, all right, we're going to head to a break. After a break, plenty more to talk about. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Brought to you by Chemist Warehouse. The Chemist Warehouse half-price vitamin sale is on now. Alrighty, the Knights appoint Justin Holbrook as the next head coach. Speaking to Code Sports this week, Holbrook said, "I'm really excited. I love being a head coach, and especially this opportunity to coach Newcastle. I spent a few years up there in 99-2000, and I love the city. I love the people, and I'm looking forward to getting to work. The game has changed, and it's becoming faster. But we all know across the history of our game that some things don't change. And for the Knights, it's purely that are hard-working, tough people that play the game of rugby league in a way that reflects the city. That's what I've got to get back to. Opposition teams used to fear going up there, and I know it doesn't happen now because of outstanding stadium facilities. But I remember the opposition players would have to get dressed in dressing rooms that have been hosed down wet. They'd feel uncomfortable as soon as they arrived, and that's what I want to instill again." Holbrook insists the mega signing of Eels playmaker Dylan Brown, who will join the Knights on $10 million deal. He inherits, not insists. The new coach said Brown's immense talent was something he will embrace, pointing out the additional arsenal and attack that former Roosters half Sandon Smith will provide. He's Brown. He's one of the strike halves in our competition. To have him join the club, I think it's a really important piece. I'm looking forward to working with the whole group, but knowing that he's such a strike player as well as Sandon Smith, I think we've got some real quality recruits coming to the club. The club has done a great job putting the roster together, and I'm unfortunate one that gets to come in and coach them. Look, I got to say, I like the fact that one of his first quotes is about connecting them back to what it is to be a Knights player and Steel City. You know, you look at the Penrith Panthers, one of their most underrated parts of their dynasty was their connection to something bigger than themselves, which is the area, Western Sydney and Penrith. There's not much better motivation than telling a bunch of players that everyone counts you out and talks negatively about your area. I mean, that's what Queensland's whole dynasty was built on, was the chip on the shoulder, was the New South Wales think they're better than you, they don't respect you. And I think, I like that from Holbrook. And I've always been a big believer. I felt like, although I understood the Titans' decision because Des Hasler is Des Hasler. So I get why they thought, you know what, we're going to make a risky call here. Des Hasler doesn't come on the market often. Let's get him while we can. But I was always of the mind where I felt Holbrook probably got really unlucky there, and I felt like probably wasn't getting appreciated how much he'd helped build that kind of roster. So when Holbrook took over the Titans, I'm pretty sure they just had their worst season in the club's history. And he took them to, I think the worst year he had was 12th or 13th. And then outside of that, it was 9th, 8th, I think, maybe even 7th, and then maybe 10th or something like that. And I felt like he was really building something there, and I don't think enough credit was being given that, okay, yes, were there always issues around Holbrook and the Titans when it came to defence? But I think Holbrook identified, listen, I can try and coach these guys like the Melbourne Storm, but they are just not going to react. And I think that Desi Hasler kind of proved that roster will not react well to a conservative style of coaching that's focused on defence and grittiness, And so I think that Holbrook was looking at his roster at the time at Titans saying, listen, we might not out-defend teams, but we might outscore them, And so going to the Knights, not only does he have that, he's got a great Super League resume. Now looking back on his resume at the Titans, it's a bit better than we gave it credit for. But he's also been at the Roosters, being their attack coach. And, what's the one thing the Roosters have had the last few years? It's crazy attack. And so I don't mind this at all. Now, there is an argument you made, could have you gone a fresh coach with fresh ideas and connected to the youth? Potentially. But I don't mind this from the Knights. Another thing that a lot of people may not be aware of as well, if there was one thing Holbrook was known for at the Titans, was all his community work. He was loved by the Gold Coast community. He would, the owners would always talk about how many extra hours he would spend in the community to try and connect the fans with their playing group. And it was actually something that reportedly, at least, I don't know for sure, but reportedly, that they struggled with Desi with, that he probably didn't get connected with the Gold Coast community. And so it seems like his first point of call will be to connect this playing group back with their community, which I like. What do you reckon, Maestro?
Well, that's going to be key to retaining players. All those, the narrative around the Knights has been all the players they've let go. over the last 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Something Matty Johns talks about all the time with you on a Friday. So that's going to be a big part of it because a lot of their cap is gone now. Like they've committed to Dylan Brown. They want to commit to Kalen Ponga again. Whether they'll be able to do that is a different question.
I don't think KP stays.
No, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
And that's why I mean, like the mountain of work that he's going to have to get through. They do have a good replacement there in Fletcher Sharp, potentially. They've got to get him fit and firing. How this team plays now is going to be the big question. We've got that evidence of how he set teams up in the past. The Knights' attack was their big issue this year. Hopefully they can improve that side of things, but their defensive side of the ball was not up to scratch whatsoever at all this year either.
Towards the back end. They started pretty well, but that back end, they just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
It's funnily enough, Dylan Brown will be the big talking point. Understandably so, it's a 10-year deal. It's actually Kalen Ponga that's a big talking point for me. And you guys know I'm a conspiracy guy and I like to speculate. So there's never evidence for this. It's just purely, putting my hand in the air, seeing where the wind's blowing.
Let's hear it.
But, when that whole KP to rugby got leaked, I was like, what does Kalen gain from leaking this? Especially since he came out and said, I'm not going anywhere. Like, what does his team gain from leaking that they were considering going to Union? But what does the other side gain if they are looking at, because I just, you've got O'Sullivan there, who's one of the best recruitment officers in the game. You've got Peter Parr, veteran of the game. And, I look at it and I go, I just don't know a reasonable recruitment officer that would sign Dylan Brown on a 10-year deal on $1.3 million a year, but also be preparing to offer KP another 5-year extension on $1.5 million a year. I just think that throws your salary cap so out of whack. And so the only thing I can think of is they're looking at it going, there's been whispers for a while that KP would be willing to move on. We've got a new coach. Maybe we need to sit down with KP and make that call sooner rather than later. So that's going to be the biggest challenge. It's the Kalen Ponga situation because he's actually signed until 27, isn't he?
Yes.
So it's like, I don't know. And look, maybe they did, they want to have Dylan Brown at 6, KP at Dylan Brown at 7, KP at fullback and Fletcher Sharp at 6. But I just go, I just don't know whether long term that's your play.
Yeah.
Maybe short term. So that's going to be the biggest hurdle is what does KP see? Is he on board with it? I mean, there won't be a shortage of suitors for Kalen Ponga. Maybe, will he get 1.4 million somewhere else? Maybe not. Probably not. Will he get $1 million? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that's going to be the biggest question. When Holbrook comes in, knowing already that he has this 10-year elephant in the room, what does he do with Kalen Ponga?
What's their ceiling for the next year? I know it's very early, Kempy. We know there could be recruitment going on. November 1's still ahead of us. Looking at their roster right now, new coach in, the way they ended the season, what's the ceiling? What's a pass mark for Holbrook? Is it just getting out of the bottom 4?
Well, the tough thing is this, mate. With the Eels, they didn't have all these people on massive deals.
No.
So they could just come in, and I like what Riles did, and I like what the Eels administration did. They said, you've got free reign.
Yeah.
Rip everything out, and if you win a spoon, win a spoon. The problem with the Knights is it doesn't feel like he's been given that leeway because he's got Dylan Brown on a 10-year deal. He's got Kalen Ponga on this massive deal. I personally think when you look at since they won a premiership, they haven't fired a shot.
No.
They've made finals a couple of times, but the Knights haven't fired a shot. In finals, there's not been, outside of diehard Knights fans, there hasn't really been people going, oh, the Knights are heavyweights here. They could win they've made finals off the back of individual brilliance, all these great runs. And don't get me wrong, that's good. But I think that a proud club like the Knights isn't just happy with making the finals, especially for the last 20 years. So if I was Peter Parr, I'd be saying rip the whole thing out. And yes, we are building around Dylan Brown, of course. That's the one thing that we have to lock in. But I'd be saying to Holbrook, where you finish is irrelevant. More it is, how are we building towards the future? And I said this with the Eels at the start. When they were getting pumped at the start of the year, I said with the Eels, don't look at the results. Focus on how much these young guys have improved from round 1 to round 27. The results will come when they improve. And we saw how good it was. And I think that the Knights need to take the same tact. They can't afford to do a half rebuild. It needs to be a complete from the ground up rebuild. The problem though is that you have this huge, the biggest chunk of your salary cap That's already sorted for you. So you can't make any plays in that area. That's the only, it might not be a negative. Dylan Brown could play to his potential, and we all could be sitting there going, great, but it's a hurdle. It's definitely a hurdle. What do you reckon, mate?
No, they're hoping he becomes the Mitch Moses that they can put around lots of young guys. The problem is he hasn't performed in his career yet, unless you disagree, to the level of Mitch Moses, even in club footy. So
he's never done it at 7 either.
They are paying on potential, which is a real worry. And I think that point you make all the time about the balance of salary caps, since that has come in, no team has won this way. So they are trying to do something unprecedented with this signing.
You could honestly make the argument not a single 10-year deal has been worth it. A lot of people are negative on the Taumalolo deal, but he's
coming back into it, isn't he?
But also, there were 5 years where he was unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
But even the DCE one, a lot of people would say that was success, but they didn't fire a shot in that time, and they made finals 3 times or something like that. Just these 10-year deals, I get it to a degree, but I would just always fall back on none of the big clubs do it. Even Nathan Cleary isn't on a 10-year deal. Even Cameron Smith wasn't on a 10-year deal. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I just go, if the big dogs aren't doing it, with 10-year deals, you're almost admitting that you don't have a good enough club to come to unless you are willing to just throw money at someone. And if you're already admitting that, then you're up against it. Like the Titans had to do it with Tino. That obviously whatever happened there, and so that's the tough thing for Holbrook is that he had no say in this, and that's another part of these 10-year deals that no one talks about. Is in 5 years' time, if things don't work out, the people that made this deal are not going to be at the club anymore. So you've inherited, and that's why it's really important to have really strong oversight at clubs that are looking for the longevity of a club, that these things, it's a tough one.
Don't fester.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I can't make sense of it. Alrighty, what we're going to do is we're going to get, just quickly a text here. Kempy and KP play 7. I'd see the spine as Sharp 1, Brown 6. And I know you didn't, but I can't say this enough. We have tried the KP in the front line multiple times. It nearly ended the bloke's career. I don't know how many times we have to try it before this guy stops playing footy. I get where you're coming from. In attack, he absolutely can play 7. I actually think in attack, you'll see him as first receiver a lot of the time. But as an out-and-out 7, it's a definition of insanity. Keep trying the same thing and see if something different happens. All right, we'll head to a break. See you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We've got some more text here. Kempy. KP, born in WA, great buy on the field and great story off the field for the Bears. Okay, for the Bears. Geez, I wonder where to go to the Bears. I mean, and would he want to go home? Look, I reckon Munster's probably a safer bet just because he plays more regularly. Because the tough thing is he has been in and out of first grade for a bit, KP, with some injuries. And if you're going to build a club around him, especially first year, you'd probably need him to be on the field. But I don't mind the story for sure. Kempy, I hope they allow Dylan to rest and not select him, the Kangaroos. As far as opposing fans targeting McLean and Talangi because of their inexperience, Panthers is the most experienced finals team. For sure. Panthers could be the most experienced finals team. It doesn't change the fact that Talangi and McLean are quite inexperienced. McLean's played finals footy, but also, for example, in week 1 of the finals, the 2 line breaks that were conceded, they were on Talangi and McLean's edge. So, hopefully they can clean it up, but it is something they need to consider. Alrighty, we're going to head to a break, and we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Lontel Internet. If you're looking for internet, it's the best in the biz, guys, and it's powered by NBN Co. They hooked me up on the weekend. I was watching 4K everywhere. It was the best weekend everywhere. I downloaded Borderlands 4. I know you're a big gamer. Skip a scope. Downloaded Borderlands 4, 60 gigs, 65 gigs in 4 minutes.
Wow.
So go to Lontel, LAUNTEL.net.au. Go to residential, put your address in, use code BLOKE, 7 days free, and then you get $25 credit. No credit cards, no contracts, and you only pay for what you use. So if you want to crank it up, get the fastest speeds, multi-gig, you can, but you only pay, then you crank it back down, then you pay for the normal speeds. Okay, skip a scope. How you going, brother?
What's doing, Beak?
Oh, mate, it's been a dramatic day. So my big points this week were, Walsh, the precedent has been set with Morgan Smithies, with Saifidi not getting a week, so I don't think you should get a week because the precedent was set. And then my other big claim, or not claim, but backing up Hines, is I do think that the Sharkies are unfairly criticised. And that's lit up the fire. It's lit up the text boards, mate. But first of all, let's get your thoughts on the whole Reece Walsh, Hudson Young, Raiders drama, mate.
So, on reflection, it was awesome. By the way, able to call the game down there at Canberra on Sunday. Mate, that is... I've only been doing this for a couple of years now here at SEN and calling games. That's easily the best game that I've... That might even be one of the best games I've ever been involved in. Player, commentator,
I've
podcaster.
never seen anything like it.
It was awesome, mate. On the specific... if we're talking about purely the Reece Walsh Hudson Young incident,
and just to set the stage, so that an error is made.
Yep.
Hudson Young runs about 5 or 6 metres away from Walsh, gets in his face, chirps him.
Yep.
Walsh turns around, headbutts him. It wasn't hard, but he headbutted him. That's all that matters.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think it does matter with what sort
How hard?
how hard, what sort of contact you get. It was sort of a little nudge that's glazed him and missed. In saying that, I guess the big talking point's been the penalty for both, and the fact I actually don't mind that both players were sent to the bin for it.
Okay.
If Hudson, and we've seen it on a number of occasions this year in different ways. So the one that stands out, there's a couple of occasions that I'll bring up. So Nick Meaney pats Matty Burton on the head.
Yeah.
And this wasn't a 10 in the bin.
Yeah.
But they had just got an error. He comes out of his way and pats Matty Burton on the head after Matty Burton dropped the ball.
Yep.
The penalty got reversed and it went to the Bulldogs after the Bulldogs had just lost the ball.
Yep.
Another example is the Dolphins-Roosters game when Spencer Leniu was running past All Blacks Tafa, right?
One of the great moments in rugby
Turned
league.
around, shaped up, different versions of it, but essentially the person who is instigating or starting a Francis Mallet or it breaks off into a Francis, then they are also, they're the ones that are getting punished the hardest, whether it's, all right, you are going, in Spencer's case, or you had the ball, Nick Meaney, now you don't have the ball. So there has been some consistency in the rulings. So I was happy for both to be sent off. In saying that, I think it sort of cancelled each other out with Walshy reacting in the way he did. So therefore, I thought the only mistake out of it was for me that the Raiders shouldn't have got the penalty against them.
For sure.
That's probably my, sort of, mate, if Hudson Young and me and Mace were talking about this on our potty, how many times have, I've been on the footy field and I used to chirp a little bit as well, run past someone, give them a bit of stick, and you just do it. And, sometimes you don't even, have to give eye contact. You let them know as you're walking past them and you go and tap one of your boys on the head and all that sort of stuff. Huddy could have done that. He made a point to run straight up to Walshy because he knew Walshy would have been emotional with it. Walshy reacted in the way he did. So I was happy with both to get sent for 10 in the bin.
And I guess that's another thing that I've tried to speak about. Like, people are pretending like Walsh and Hudson Young were already standing next to each other and he just gave him a little bit of chirp. It's like, that's not what happened. Young ran from 5 metres away and hit him with his chest and got in his face. I'm not as far as, the only problem I have is, I don't think chirping like that is the same as getting headbutted. That's where I feel like, and I know I don't want to bring in the 5 minute in the bin, but I just don't feel like it's fair that they got equally punished there.
Fair, but this is to my point, and I think it does matter, right? He lunges out, sort of glances him, doesn't. It's more just get out of my face without using your hands. It's one of those things we've seen it. I've seen it. I had front row seats to it when Hainsey did it way back in the day. He got a cheap shot from a guy called Corey Payne, I think his name was, for the Bulldogs. And remember Hainsey, and it was a big deal back in those days because Hainsey had to play Origin the next week.
Yeah, okay.
And there was all this drama around it. Hainsey gets up, he's got hold in the ball, and he sort of throws his head out and sort of lunges towards him. There was no connection. There's no proper connection. If Walshy grabs him, launches back, and then connects with it, in a proper headbutt. Not to say that he should be doing that, but I'm just saying there's a difference, and the contact does matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely does matter. And also, we've set the precedent in regard to, funnily enough, Morgan Smithies. I don't even think he got 10 in the bin for his headbutt.
Yeah, and his one on Fanua Polo. Look, that was way worse.
That was
was worse.
Now, there are some that say, well, it's different because Reece Walsh was standing there and it wasn't in the tackle and he threw the headbutt. Whereas I disagree with that. I believe if you've got enough evidence to show that the headbutt is intentional, the environment in which it happens is irrelevant.
Yep.
Anyway, so, okay. I personally think, I'd love to get your thoughts. So the headbutt one for me is not that much of a drama. Just in regards to should have they got penalised as much? No, I don't think they should have. But it's not much. It's done is done. I actually think Paddy Carrigan got off so luckily with his shoulder contact to their head. I think that if that was in season, he gets 2 to 3 weeks. Not that I don't want Paddy Carrigan in the grand final if they make it, obviously. But that's the one where I felt he shot up out of the line, direct contact to their head. That's kind of what we're trying to rub out of the game. What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I've looked at it a few times. I haven't seen an angle where I've seen clear contact. Now, I'd imagine people maybe have. The NRL probably got better vision. There was an element of doubt where Paddy, in some of the replays that we were looking at on Monday, where it looked like it sort of bounced off. And I actually thought that it looked as though it was a head clash. It looked as though Paddy Carrigan's head actually had a head clash with Morgan Smithies.
Well, it did kind of allude to it when he went up to the ref, I think, like head clash.
Yeah. Yep. In saying that, you're right. Like, if someone like Nelson Asafa-Solomona or Victor Radley had done that, similar, if that you just swap the names sometimes, and that's all it takes.
Absolutely.
And the past record that they've got.
Yeah.
It could have gone. It could have been 3 or 4 weeks. Like, Nelson's currently sitting out 3 or 4, isn't he? So. I wouldn't. It's one of those ones. It sort of felt like an Origin like big hit tackle where everyone goes, "Oh, that's probably NRL level." But we've got the finals coming up, and I think one game is sufficient. Me and again going back to me and Mace, we're discussing whether we would have attempted to fight it because I don't know, mate. There's a part of me that I think the Bulldogs are going to win this week.
You think you're going to beat Panthers?
Sorry. I think the Panthers are going to beat the Bulldogs this week.
Yeah.
Apologies. And then I don't think the Broncos can beat the Panthers without Paddy Carrigan.
I think it's a tough one. I really do. Like the Broncos. Like, yes, it was a great win. It was an entertaining as anything game. It wasn't clinical. I'll tell you that much for free. And so that's the worry I have. Like, the Penrith Panthers will be pretty confident going up against the Broncos. Obviously, there's that grand final thing hovering over their heads. I will say Mike Maguire as coach gives me a bit of confidence they'll be G'd up. But they'll be missing Billy Walters and Carrigan.
Big outs.
Huge outs. Now, I do think, and this is my early call, I think Ezra Mann will play 6.
Yeah.
I think Hunt will play 9. Because from the get-go, when the Broncos came out and said Selwyn and Ezra were gone for the year, I said that's smoke and mirrors. That's not like you're telling me you're already willing to rule out 2 of your key players or biggest players when you could make a grand final this year.
Yeah.
Like that all that says to me is you're trying to get the headlines out of the situation. Whereas if they had said, they might be back in 4 or 5 weeks, all we would have been talking about is Ezra back? Is Ezra not back? Is Selwyn back? I'm pretty sure Selwyn's been named for bloody Q Cup.
Oh, really?
This week. I'm pretty sure, yeah. So it's like,
wow.
I think you'll find Ezra will be starting for the Broncos at 6.
What about Mr. Stand on Business, Xavier Willison?
Stand on busy.
Stand on busy. Is he back? If he's
Mr.
back,
Justin Bieber, he's standing on business, baby. Have you seen that clip? Don't you realise I'm standing on business? I'll get the clip up in the break.
Okay. That's
Xavier Willison, Justin Bieber. Well, you know what? We'll get the audio on the show. Again, I think that the Carrigan is such a huge out against the Penrith Panthers that are red hot. And also, this is the first time the Penrith Panthers have been full strength the whole year.
Yeah.
That's scary.
You know what I was thinking about too, watching the Panthers after and just sort of reviewing the game. Actually, I was driving home and thinking about the game and all the chaos that happened. Another part of the Panthers' greatness, their discipline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're not getting dragged into anything like that.
They never get dragged into any of this stuff like this.
Yeah.
They've been super physical.
Yeah.
Moses Leota, James Fisher-Harris, Viliami kick-out when he was there. Mitch Kenny shoots out the line and bashes people.
Yep.
They never have a player in the finals at the end of the season when it matters most that's either
doing something silly and on report or getting involved in a Francis or and going back to what I said before with the injuries, like they do such a good job of getting everything right timing wise, and I know they're still going to get through this game on Sunday and it's going to be huge, and there's going to be plenty of carry on in this game because the Bulldogs will get
they'll get 60,000 there for sure.
Mate, let's just put it this way. I really hope the Bulldogs win this game.
Yeah.
Because I do think the Broncos just don't have to worry about that mental, that little mental like, the Penrith Panthers, if they get to Suncorp, are going to be looking across going, hey, boys, remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that big game that we had last time?
What about, and it's not to say that, like, I know most of their runs have been at a call. They actually won their first grand final up at Suncorp too. Remember?
Yes, against the Rabbitohs.
So Suncorp doesn't scare them at all.
Absolutely. So, look, huge weekend. Can I be honest? Like, if I was just taking pure, like, heart and feeling out of it, it's looking like a Penrith Storm grand final, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just because the only reason is I worry for the Raiders that was a crazy game. They might be able to get the Sharkies done, maybe, but then to beat Melbourne down in Melbourne with Jerome Hughes back, that's a tough ask.
Yeah, those two teams were my favourites to win it, and I still, before that game, I was chatting to people in and around there, and I was like, feel like the winner of this game wins the grand final, and the loser of this game can still meet them in the grand final.
Oh, that's what I want.
There was too much carnage in it.
It was carnage.
There was too much in it.
95 minutes, bro.
And it will be very, like, I don't know how Ricky is going to get him up. If there's one guy that can get him up emotionally, and against the Sharks team who, again, are just doing their best work late. And
Sharkies are quietly confident, just flying under the radar.
Yeah.
Like, no one's talking about them.
It comes down to health and form.
Yeah.
Like, that's what
really
the
does.
Panthers and Sharks have on their side that no other team has at the moment.
Now, this isn't hindsight speaking, but it might be hindsight for different reasons. But I think we both kind of had this opinion. I was surprised that Ricky Stewart wanted to play Sunday Arvo against the Brisbane Broncos. Because, like, does Reece Walsh have that crazy moment at Saturday night and it's bloody 5 degrees or whatever down there?
Yep.
Maybe not. I'm not sure. Now, so that was the reason I actually thought Ricky should have said, no, I want a Saturday night game against the Broncos down here. However, what's done is done. On top of that, though, they now have a shorter turnaround because they decided to play on Sunday.
Yeah, and a big part, I guess, why he wanted to play on Sunday was that so they had a 4 weeks.
But they'd rested all their players.
They rested all the players against the Dolphins, so that didn't even make sense. Yeah, in hindsight, it's going to be one of those ones. If they'd gone out and got the job done, he would look like a genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
They didn't. They lost, and now they're going to have to go the tougher route.
I never understood though. The last team you want to be playing on a warm Sunday Arvo track is literally the Broncos. Like Reece Walsh is designed for afternoon tracks, and that's what I was a bit surprised at. Like, and granted, I know Ricky would be like, "Well, I got KO Weeks, who killed it himself."
Strange,
yeah,
Hudson Young.
I get it, but like, why give Broncos even a sniff like that?
Yeah.
But it's happened. I cannot wait for Raiders Sharkies. Listen, we're going to go to a break. After break, we've got plenty more to talk about, including some huge matches coming up. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Skipper Scope, speak to me. Alrighty. So the other games on the weekend, the Roosters, the Sharkies, mate. How do you rate the Roosters season? Where do you land the Sharkies? Where you at, mate?
Yeah, going into the game in the last couple of weeks, I heard you talking about Nico Hines earlier on as well, and him not, I guess...
The club not getting the respect.
Not getting the respect. Look, it comes with the territory, Nico. Like, my big thing with it, and I guess you sort of agreed with him in a way, there was a middle part of the year where they weren't looking all that great. They've got themselves in a good little rhythm now. They're winning games. They're winning games ugly, so credit to them. They've also failed now in back-to-back years. They've probably arguably been the most consistent regular season team, right up there with the Melbourne Storm and maybe Penrith. Like, those are the top three for the last 3 years since Fitzy's been there. But they have failed when it's got to the finals in big games. Did they make the prelim against Panthers last year, or was that the year before?
Yep, prelim last year.
So, look, that's not bad as well, but they've just got to get over this hump, and that's what comes with it, right? Like, you're going to get the criticism until you're able to get over the hump, and I guess that's where they're at now. My big thing going into the finals, or even a couple of weeks ago, I thought Cronulla can't win the comp, but they can knock out a couple of teams that I think can, and I think they're in a great position to do that back-to-back weeks. I had the Roosters being a real pain in the backside for a lot of teams. They removed them.
Yep.
I thought they were probably going to be more dangerous for some of the better teams, just say like a preliminary or a grand final, but they removed them, so that doesn't matter how you think about the Roosters anymore. And because of all the chaos on the weekend, I think they're in a great position to go down to Canberra and do it again.
What would you say? I guess where Nico's coming from is that they cop like the talking point around the Shark is what you just said. It's a relatively strong point in rugby league. What about the Roosters, for example, where the same time that Fitzy's been a head coach of the Sharkies, they've both won the same amount of finals games, the Roosters and the Sharks too.
We'll see. It's because I had higher expectations on the Sharks and the Roosters at the start of the year. Now that sort of changed a little bit as the year went on. Like as for a lot of teams, right? You go through the roller coaster of the season and form, and then you start to see a Roosters team that's starting to, you had younger players like Nwanga Nitawase and Rob Toya emerge and become players like you probably didn't expect at the start of the year. But in saying that, it was just the style of footy that the Roosters were playing. It was maybe a little bit more entertaining to watch. So when you don't, for me anyway, this is my opinion, like when I don't have, I could care less who wins really games. At the end of the day, I sort of go back and start favouring and tipping the teams that I think are more entertaining.
Yep.
And that's what I thought the Roosters were. Now, like I said, the Sharks are capable enough in this competition, and I've said this for about 3 or 4 weeks. People were declaring Melbourne like 5 or 6 weeks ago. I was going, no way. There's like this competition's way more open. It's not even like years past where it's been like 1, 2, or 3 teams where you feel confident that they're going to go through. So Sharks are in that bracket, and if they do go on and beat a team like Canberra, they're also going to have a really great opportunity to do the same thing down in Melbourne against a busted Melbourne team. So it's not Cronulla's fault who's being put in front of them and the injuries that they've got. And again, it's credit to, like I was saying before with Penrith, they're timing it right. Fitzy's got them humming. They're starting to, sometimes all you need is a good 5 or 6 weeks to go on a run. So that's where they're at.
Okay, where are the Roosters at? Where are the Roosters at now? They, yes, they lost players last year, but they still have a stacked side. Essentially a representative starting forward pack, multiple representative outside backs as well. Dally M winner, like Teddy will win the Dally M by a country mile.
Yep.
Would you say it's been a successful? Like, are you okay with the way they bowed out this year?
Yeah, I like. They pride themselves on winning premierships and championships, so they'd be disappointed. But I think it's a pass mark for them. I really do, because at the start of the year, especially after the start they had, people were talking about them finishing in the bottom 4. They've gone.
I don't know who had it. Like, if you had that team in the bottom 4, my God, that's a tough one.
The emergence of something like the players that I mentioned, even a guy who didn't play at the end because he was 18th man, Celestia Fiketti. I think he's got a huge future.
Massive.
Nafahu White has turned into not only the most improved Roosters forward, not only now the most consistent Roosters forward. I think he's a premier front rower.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think he's got to that point. So there are so many things. I guess with the Reece Robson arrival next year, I think he's going to add some a bit of experience to him, a little bit of representative experience. In saying that, like Connor Watson's almost the perfect 14, and I like the look of that Benai Yellow as well. Like I think he's got a bit of a future.
Could you start Connor at 13 and you start with White, Collins, and bring Spencer off the bench?
I think you could still go. I think you could still in the modern game now. I think you could start Reece Robson and have Benaya and Connor Watson on the bench. Or depending on your styles. I think Connor Watson is going to turn into Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on matchups, he starts. If it's a matchup that they like, that they'll start him. If not, they might go 2 smaller players on the bench.
Yep. Okay. Alrighty, in regards to the Panthers, where are the Panthers at right now? Are they humming? Are they the Penrith Panthers, or are they just a scary side to play because of their experience?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, they've timed it perfectly. Is Mitch Kenny a part? Yeah, he's a part of the extended bench. I don't think enough people gave Mitch Kenny credit for missing on the weekend. I thought he's a really important part of what they've been doing now for a long time. If he's named in the squad, I'm hoping that he's going to be back. I felt sorry for Milky Jenkins. It looked to be the right decision. Paul Alamotti was good in that game and come up with a couple of huge, especially in the conditions. It looked like the conditions really suited Paul Alamotti. The Bulldogs are busted.
Yeah, I think they're busted.
They're busted. The Panthers should go through. I think if they play this game 10 times, I think the Panthers win 8 times, maybe even 9 times out of 10. I'm
with you. Now, tough question. Are the Bulldogs busted because that's been their hurdle for the last 2 years? Because if you go back to last year as well, they got to the back end of the season, they fatigued. Or are they busted because they made too many changes to key positions late in the year?
I think there's bad juju around the Bulldogs.
Okay, you're a big juju guy.
Yeah, I'm a big juju guy.
Okay.
I think all the stuff that they did, being in first position, going and plucking one of the premier players or one of the best prospects from a team that was down the bottom at the time, and that's been a cellar dweller now in the Tigers for 3 years in the Lachlan Galvin. They get rid of a couple of really popular guys that were almost a part of their DNA. I think there's bad juju around the Bulldogs, and the juju has killed their season. It's been through form, it's been through criticism, it's been through injury. There's a if they didn't done the Lachlan Galvin exchange maybe a year later, I think it would have just absorbed a bit of pressure away from the situation. People still would have been frustrated. Don't get me wrong, Kempy. People would have been furious that the team that was running first at the time were able to get a player from the Tigers, but I think it's just the manner in which it happened throughout the middle part of the year. I just think there's just been. It feels like it's been a snowball effect, and they've been going downhill ever since.
I understand the Garver one because he was on the market. He's there. You just got to grab him. But I don't understand the Marnie one. Like, I feel like that was just an unforced, didn't need to happen. That's just added to the confusion. Anyway, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we've got plenty more to talk about, including previewing the games this weekend. Well, welcome back to the Captain's Run. Alrighty, let's get into it. Raiders v. the Sharkies. Raiders paying $1.57. The Sharkies, $2.40. Thoughts on this game, mate? Raiders at home. The Sharkies, Saturday night, $7.50. How do you feel about this one, Skipper Scope?
Sorry, Nico. I'm on the Raiders. Nah, look, I again, going back to it, I think I've loved what the Raiders have done this year. It's going to be a huge effort for Ricky to get his Raiders up, especially because they don't have the, I guess with that right edge was so problematic, mate.
Mate, it's been an issue for a long time.
And it doesn't get any easier. Braden Trindle was awesome last week.
Tricky Trindle was unbelievable last week.
Kale Ito, Ronaldo Mulatalo.
Not easy.
Not
easy.
I'm taking the points on the Sharks. That's what I'd be doing. Responsibly, of course. What are you really gambling with? If I was to have a play in this game, Sharkies with the points, I think this is going to be really close. I think on the weekend I said I like the margin of under 6.5 for pretty much all the games. The only real little blowout was the Warriors-Panthers, and that was because of a couple of wayward passes at the end of that game and a weird bounce off a kick, right, where the Warriors were right in that. They just couldn't score any points.
Mate, talk about how unlucky the Warriors are. Like, that Talangi knock-on was outrageous, and that forward pass was so bad. The 2023, they're in an elimination final. Reece Walsh throws an NFL pass forward. They get eliminated, and then it's tough.
They did get beaten by a fair bit by the Broncos in that game.
No, I know, but it's just like 2 elimination finals. You're getting pinged. As a Warriors fan, I actually think the Broncos still would have won.
Yep.
And I definitely think the Penrith Panthers still would have won. But geez, it's got to be tough to swallow.
Yeah, you still don't want those scores to happen,
want
right?
them so bad.
So I'm leaning to it could be it could be exactly the same as I called in the game last week. I think the Sharks can win, and maybe will if I was tipping them, but I want the Raiders to win.
Okay.
Because that's what I said on the weekend with the Roosters, and that's the way it played out.
See, I want the Raiders to win because I want a Broncos-Raiders grand final. But if I'm not going to get a Broncos-Raiders grand final, I wouldn't mind just getting on the Sharky side and, proving a few doubters wrong. Could you imagine Sharks in a GF?
Yeah.
Get them down to Melbourne, upset Melbourne. All of a sudden they're in a GF. Nico Hines saying, that's for all the haters.
Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of a story.
Mate.
There's a little bit of a storyline. I'd much prefer Canberra and Melbourne on that side of the
draw.
On that side.
What grand final do you want?
Yeah, the one that you want.
Broncos,
I want Broncos.
Yeah,
I want Broncos
mate,
Raiders.
That'd be so spicy. Imagine Madge and Ricky going back and forth, leaking all this in the media and just all these stories getting out. It's the best.
Yeah, all the what do you call it? Like they've all got a media personality that they got in the back.
Of course, they've all got
Bang.
something in the back pocket. I mean, you've already seen after the game with the whole Reece Walsh walking off, giving the finger.
Yeah,
there was back and forth between different articles about they're leaking this. Like it still went on after the game.
Yeah,
it's the best. Okay, so the Raiders look. The explosiveness of the Raiders pack is tough to handle, especially the big worry I have is the mismatch in that back row. So you've got Burns, Wilton, Colquhoun versus Hudson Young, Horsburgh, Hosking. It's a bit of a mismatch in the Sharkies Raiders.
You don't think Britton Nicola will start after coming off the bench last week?
Well,
I think he will, mate.
You think he'll start?
Yep.
Okay.
Billy Burns has been awesome. I think Billy Burns has been awesome this year. But Britton Nicola, when the game was on the line and it felt like Roosters had all the possession at the start of the second half. Thought he come on and had a real presence about him. And for me, I think he's one of the best back rows in the competition.
Oh, he's outstanding.
You know, so
why do you reckon name him on the bench though? Like just
just one of those late changes.
Yeah, okay.
You know, you make sure you do. Make sure the Raiders are doing enough video and film on Billy Burns.
Hutto's on the left.
Yep, that'll be Britton Nikita versus Hudson Young.
So you're probably gonna need him on there, to be honest. With Hudson Young, you would. I mean, saw how good Hudson Young was on the weekend. He was unstoppable.
What do you reckon the Raiders do with the problematic right edge? That wasn't a fluke. That's been happening to them all year, especially in the big games. Now they've been good enough because they've been such a good team that they've been able to score enough points and it not be an issue. But there have been multiple games where they've had maybe 2 or 3 tries happen down that edge, and it's not just because since Jed Stewart's been there. In fact, I think they've even improved a little bit. Because Xavier Savage was having his own dramas. It must be something to do with Timoko and Fogarty at the moment because, like I said, the Sharks are going to be coming early and often.
No, the problem is you can't fix it in a week. You're not going to, unless you risk it and go, listen, we're always jamming in or we're always sliding. But then you're risking that you get it wrong every time by doing that. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I think they've just got to trust that they can outscore the Sharkies. To be honest, and I know that sounds silly, you've got to outscore to win, but what I mean is like I think that it's almost like certain teams that make errors, they trust they can defend it. I think the Raiders are going to say, look, we're going to leak a couple of tries here, but we just got to make sure that we believe we're good enough to be able to score those points to sort it out kind of thing. Because I just don't think you're going to fix it in a week. Do you try to put a lot of pressure on Trindle? You know, do you try to shoot up out of the line?
That's what the Roosters try to do, mate. That try assist for Renato Mulatalo.
Unbelievable. Both of them. Both of his
I don't think he even really, like, he moved maybe 3 or 4 steps without even controlling the ball.
Craziness.
Like, it was just going around his waist, and he beat Robert Toya twice.
Honestly, like, that's the best of Trindle. That's the Trindle that, you know, you're hoping to come play finals footy. Outside of that, like, you know, do you make sure your back row is up and in their face? I'm just not sure. Do you get a sweeping fullback to cover in behind, kind of like what Gutho does to give you an extra man at times?
This game is I reckon it's going to be similar to the game that they had at the start of the year, like round 4, 5, 6, whatever it was, down in Canberra.
Yeah, Sharkies had them done.
And Sharkies, it's just whether the Raiders can pull one out late. That's where I think it's going to. That's how I think this game.
I don't agree with the 241-57. I actually think it's closer to like
coin flip,
almost a coin flip, like last
genuine
week.
Coin flip. That's why I said I'll take the points. If you give me 3.5 or 4 or whatever it will be, with that sort of number, you take that. If you're going to have a punt on the game responsibly,
mate. So it's getting lost in the noise. But what about Kyle Weeks' performance last week?
you know who I said Kyle Weeks was? He was Ezra Mem of the grand final.
Yes.
He had almost this incredible 15, 20-minute period just before and after half time. And he was still the second best fullback on the field.
Any other week, we are talking Kyle Weeks has just had the performance of a lifetime.
And not even the tries, but even before the tries. I was saying in commentary, like, he's the most dangerous.
Yeah.
Hudson Young with his ad-lib, like, unpredictable footy, for sure. But KO Weeks was the one constantly breaking tackles or taking 2 or 3, a tackle break or taking 2 or 3 defenders. He was awesome on the weekend. But he was all the young players. I was watching him in the back play. Savelio Tamale, KO Weeks, Sebastian Chris, Timoko, even Jed Stewart at times. They were all cramping up.
Okay.
And they're just young guys that haven't played a whole heap of finals footy. So we'll see how they pull up after that game going into this one against the Sharkies.
A little bit worried about Tamale. He looks a bit down in confidence ever since he came back from injury.
Doesn't have that same oomph and power, does he?
I spoke about it at the time about rushing young fellas back. Like, I know he was killing it before it, but when you're a rookie, playing first grade is hard. Like, to have the mental fortitude to be off for 6-7 weeks and then just be good to go immediately. Sometimes you need to build back into it, but I guess we'll see.
So you know what? And I agree with that, but I also now agree with, in hindsight, what Ricky did, because I was against playing it because I thought he, with the injury history that he had, I thought maybe rest him against the Dolphins to make sure that he's good to go. That could be a really good move from Ricky, that he's got 3, at least this will be his 4th game now back.
Okay.
Returning from injury.
All right, we're going to head to a break and then we're going to get to the next game, week 2 of the finals. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Alrighty, it is the Panthers versus the Doggies. This week in a huge clash. The Panthers are $1.36. The Doggies are $3.25. Now, when you go to the team list, apparently Stephen Crichton has said, no, you have to name me. Now, Kikau is good to go. So really, who they're missing in this side is Critter. Outside of that, they are full strength, I think. Montoya as well. So Critter and Montoya. So it is interesting to think that they're only really missing, and I'm sure people will text me about some people that I've forgotten, but to my understanding, and I'll correct myself if I'm wrong, it is interesting to see that they're going to this game that much of underdogs and they're only missing 2 outside backs. Granted, I understand Critter is their captain. I get it. But it's not like they're missing, their whole spine or something like that. What are your thoughts on this?
Let's make sure we're not missing anyone. Yeah, so just the 4, and it was the outside backs. I think it's Anari Twala is the other player who's been filling in. He's out as well. So we've got Critter, Marcelo Montoya,
anyway.
Bronson Cherry's been named, and Anari Twala was basically their backup outside back.
Yes.
So you've got it covered for the most part there, Kempy. This number's correct. The Panthers, like I said, play this game. I think these two teams play this game 10 times at a core with 70,000 people watching and 65,000 of them being Bulldogs fans, and the Panthers still win 8 times out of 10. Mitch Kenny, like I said before, if he's able to go, will be a big in. If Critter's able to go in this game, it's a huge in.
Okay.
I think just emotionally and the leadership that he would provide would be a huge in for the Bulldogs. But I can't see a guy like Stephen Crichton in a game that meant so much last week going off the field if he's not completely busted.
Yeah. Yep.
He just doesn't leave the field against Melbourne if he's not busted. So I don't think he's the sort of guy that would leave the field for a 1-week injury and be able to play the next week. I just don't think it's not in his DNA.
Yep.
So I'm expecting no Stephen Crichton. Do they continue to go with sort of the smaller pack? Bailey Hayward, I can imagine you talked about him at the start of the week, Kempy, with the missed tackles.
Yep.
I could probably see a late change with Reid Marnie starting in this game and maybe Bailey Hayward going back to that swingman small ball role that he was playing.
If look, I know he wouldn't be doing this because Geraldo's all just about winning, but if he does bring Marnie back in to start, isn't that an indictment of everything that's happened this year? If Marnie starts, you're basically admitting, and I know, yes, Critter's out, but I'm sure there's a young outside back that they could have put in at centre if they had to keep Burton in at 6. If he starts back at 9, aren't you almost admitting that that is your best starting side to a degree? To a
degree, but sometimes you just got to play the cards that are dealt, and you've got to figure out what team, what matchup, and he's done this before, even without the head noise of what's going on with the changes and all the drama. Even going back to last year, how many games you think about last year where he would go? Probably not Reid Marnie, but Kurt Mann would start. James Salmon would start. They'd swap around. Sometimes Josh Curran, who was named on the bench, would start in the front row and a back row wouldn't play. He does move pieces around quite often. This would be a big one, and I think it could be on the cards. And maybe we see a guy like Sam Hughes put back into the team.
Yeah,
a big body. I think they're sort of missing a big body.
Named at 21.
I don't know who
Montoya also named. So Montoya could find his way back into the side as well.
Yeah, Montoya. If Montoya is fit, I think he's probably a better chance. I think he plays instead of Jethro Rinakama.
Yeah, okay.
I think if there was a change to come outside of the 17, it's probably going to be Marcelo.
Yeah. Jeez, I feel for doggies because they've gone so well for so long, but they're at the business end of the season and they're just getting completely counted out.
Yeah.
It's just, and as I said, it's not like, you look at some of the other sides, I know the Broncos have managed to, they got recruited really well, but they went into this Raiders game without Ezra Mann, without Adam Reynolds, Selwyn Cobbo as well, and they still managed it. So that's why it's just so, I guess it would be disappointing at Doggies fans. You've come so far, but it feels like you're almost not getting recognised for it to a degree. However, crazier things have happened. Just look at Origin this year, unwinnable game. The Bulldogs have a true opportunity for an ambush. 60,000 screaming, 70,000 Bulldogs fans, 80 minutes of the best.
I could care less who wins this game. The storyline for either team coming out of this as a winner is going to be awesome. Either way. If the Bulldogs are able to pull off one of the greatest upsets in NRL history, even though they finished high, it would be a huge upset. And the Panthers, they're one game away from potentially winning 5 comps in a row.
And 6 grand finals in a row.
That's disgusting.
It is just crazy. Now, in regards to the Panthers, Look, obviously they'd be they'd have those natural nerves, but geez, they got to be feeling comfortable in the box seat right now.
Who, the Panthers?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're travelling.
Like the first time, outside of if Mitch Henny plays, this will be the first time they've been full strength in the whole season.
Yeah.
The whole season. They're rested, they're fit, they're healthy. Bizza had an incredible game last week. Liam Martin is back, good to go. Edwards' form has been a bit down, but I'm sure he can pick it up quickly. Like they must be, like Ivan Cleary must be going pretty confident that he's got a run here.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, even last week, like against the Warriors, they were a little bit clunky at times, but it didn't matter. Like the way they finished their sets, they kicked the corners, they played the long game.
Respectfully, they were still in third gear. Like they had a couple gears left in them.
Exactly right. So that's my point with it. They were willing to just go this sort of long game, play the long game, and the longer they're in a game and the scoreline is close, the more pressure that applies to anyone that they're whether it's they could be down by 4 or up by 4, that's applying pressure to whoever they're playing that's left in the competition.
And they'd even go as far to say is the longer the game is close, the more likely we are to win it.
Yeah.
Like that's how confident they would be in their finishes. All right, we're going to head to a break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. What's been going on at the Levels Network, mate? What's going on at the moment there? You and Big Willie?
Old Levels Golf Day's coming up.
Levels Golf Day?
Yeah, that's the big thing that's coming up. So
okay, who you got there going this year?
Chairs, Foz.
You friends with
Be
Chairs?
best mates. Best mates. Just be best mates. So,
just
Mitchy Moses, Gutho, a few guys that are returning from last year.
Okay.
We unfortunately just lost your Broncos because anyone who plays in a prelim, we've lost. So we lost Walshy,
Should have already known
Reynolds.
that, Should have already known that.
And we're probably going to lose Nathan Cleary, aren't we, on the weekend?
There we go. That's the Captain's Run done and dusted. Massive thank you to everyone listening and everyone texted in. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
It's not clocking to you. It's not clocking to you that I'm standing on business, is it?